Today is Friday, April 5th, 2019. My name is Judy Herrera, and I'm in Camarillo, California. It is my honor and pleasure to interview Salvador Gonsalez on behalf of the Conejo Valley chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution and Colonial Dames 17th Century for the Veterans History Project with the Library of Congress. This interview is being recorded by Ed Lynch from Advanta Videography and contains the reflections and memories of the veteran during his time in the Army. This is Sal's story. Sal, you were born in Scottsdale, Arizona to Salvador and Maria Gonsalez. You were the oldest son with 11 brothers and sisters. After attending a Catholic elementary school, you entered the seminary to study to be a priest at age 13. After you left the seminary, you attended Arizona State University. Do you want to pick up your story there?
Sure. Yes, I did attend Arizona State University, and it was challenging for those of us who were limited resources, and I was one, as there were many other students. But I chose to finish my college years. I was the firstborn in our family to be able to graduate from college. So I was gonna do it one way or another.
Good.
And so the way I chose, and the draft was in effect back then, and there was always the danger of being drafted.
Okay.
And there were ways of avoiding the draft, and I guess I chose one of the ways, and that was join a reserve unit, which was at that time the Reserve Officers Training Corps program, and they provided you with money for your last 2 years of college.
Nice.
Okay. But you did have to make a commitment that you would go active after you finish your college education, and they during those last 2 years of college, you did get the resource, but you also had to train, and part of it was the basic training, which I got in Fort Lewis, Washington.
Okay.
I believe it was the summer of '66, and so it was an effort to. I thought at the time, and I lost a girlfriend because of this. I thought at the time, if I joined now, okay, they'll pay for my last 2 years, and I'm going to be safe. I won't be drafted. And maybe by the time I get out of here, the war will be over with.
Sure.
And I had a girlfriend say, "How do you know? How do you know?" And she was very upset, and she wouldn't talk to me after that, and did not. Okay. Later on, I heard from other mutual friends that she was so upset that she felt that she couldn't handle if something bad happened to me.
Okay.
And she said, I can't do that. Mm-hmm. So we lost that friendship. Okay. So I did join, and my first assignment was Fort Benning, where I undertook the infantry officer basic course,
Okay.
and which was very good, and I did well. I did well in the training. I'm a good student.
Good.
I'm a good student, and I did very well, and then we graduated. We finished the course. And we were told, now you are all ready to lead men. Oh. And we all looked at each other. I don't think so. Is there any more schooling around we can go to? Any more preparation we can go to? And of course they pointed down the street. There was the airborne school. There were a number of schools there. And so we're all looking around to see where we could get some more training. And then I got my assignment to Fort Bragg. And I went to the John Kennedy Center for Special Warfare, and one of my training and my assignments there was in psychological operations. Okay. So we all of us undertook the experience there, and I guess that is basically what qualified for eventually also getting them in a PSYOPs unit, which we call psychological operations in Vietnam. But I also thought at the time that because of my language skills, that I probably would end up in Central or South America, from the Latin American countries because they, we did have people, Army people in Panama, in Central America, and also down in fact, we had the 8th Special Forces Group, as I recall, down in Panama. Okay. And so we, I ended up there. Well, first, before I went there, actually, I got assigned back to Fort Benning for more training, and that was the Infantry Mortar Platoon course. So I did well there. The other day I found I went to storage and I found these scores, and one of them said 100%. So that was very good. Wow. That was very good. So, like I said, I was a good student. I was a very good student. And in fact, when I was at Fort Benning, at Fort Bragg, I did help I did help with instructing the others. In fact, we were the sponsors of the Center for it's called School of the Americas, okay, where we trained, and also we had an International Police Academy where we trained officers from other countries. Oh. And I had the fortune of being able to take part in that. Sometimes I was an escort officer, sometimes I helped with the instructions and also with displays of equipment, PSYOPs equipment, and other special forces equipment that we had there at the center. And so we put on those demonstrations for them, for other countries. And then I learned a lot from dealing with foreign officers. And so we had, and so I was beginning to like it. I thought, this is not bad. This is almost like going to school again, teaching. And at times I was a little nervous, but I did learn from the instructors there that sometimes when you put on a course and you're not that familiar with it, it forces you to prepare for it, and you learn about the course. True. So that was helpful later on in life as well. And so from there, after the Infantry Mortar Platoon course, I did get my assignment down to Panama, and I went to the Jungle Operations course there, which was pretty good too. We did pretty good there, and a lot of people brush it off as green hell, as a difficult course, but it's you learn a lot, and I learned. I also was asked at one time as an officer whether I was ready to undertake some of the other courses. We had some cold country training, and we had desert training. Oh. And I said, "You from Arizona, you did good at desert training." I said, "No, I don't particularly like the desert." But what's interesting was that at the jungle school, one of the things they taught you was that they were going to teach you that the jungle was your friend. And I often wonder, what did they teach you for desert school? That the desert is your friend? How do you convince people of that? But it turned out that the jungle was a friend. They did teach us that, and I did learn that. That everything we needed to survive was in the jungle: shelter, food, water, even some medicine. Was in the jungle, and that you would survive. The other jungle was your friend. Your jungle was your friend. And we came to live in that. We came out of that course. And then we finished that, and that's when I got my orders to go to Vietnam. And I said, I guess I am going to Vietnam. And so I flew to Charleston, South Carolina, and caught a plane headed for San Francisco. But I stopped in Phoenix to say goodbye to my mom and dad and the family.
How did they take the news?
My dad took it well. My dad took it very well. At least that's the impression I drew. And my mother was very upset about it. Yeah. She was upset about it. And but I said goodbye to them. And they took me to the airport, and we embraced and said goodbye. And they were strong in their faith as well. My dad particularly, and my mother as well. So they were supportive. They were helpful. My dad particularly, being from Mexico, one of his parting comments to me and to my mother was, he's a citizen of the United States. He has to do his duty as a citizen. Okay.
Stoic.
So I did do that. So I ended up flying to Vietnam. And the other thing too, this was a very challenging time. This is the 60s. Okay, there's protests going on. Okay, even at Arizona State University, my first wife, whom I married after I got out of the service, told me that she was one of the people who protested around the ROTC building at Arizona State University. So, but I did not know her back then. And so she protested the war and she protested the ROTC program. And so, but there were a lot of protests like that all over. And this was it was a difficult time for all of us, you know, especially those who were now in the military. And one of my first difficulties with that was when I landed in San Francisco, because we were going to fly out of Travis. We had some time, and we said, you know, we'll go downtown San Francisco and visit the place. Then some of the officers who were dealing with us said, you know, don't wear your uniforms. You know, for God's sake, don't wear your uniforms. Okay, we go downtown San Francisco, don't do that. Okay, and so we all started wondering what it was all about, but we quickly found out. And then we flew to Vietnam and landed. As I recall, I think we landed at Tan Son Nhut, and then we were bused to a replacement center where they were assigning the officers. And what was so interesting about that was that there were rails on the windows and mesh on the windows of these buses. And we said, what's this all about? And he said, well, it's to prevent grenades being thrown into the bus. He says,
wow.
Geez.
Real.
You know, welcome to Vietnam.
Yes, right.
Even among the people we're defending, you know, we have to watch for grenades. He says, yes. So and then I got my assignment, because I'd been in psychological operations, I got my assignment to the 4th Psychological Operations Group, which at that time had its headquarters in Saigon. And then from there I was assigned out to the Delta.
Okay.
They call it 4 Corps. So I went down there, and a lot of the duties I performed was to help with supplies and support the unit in that manner. They were heavily involved in this program called the Chu Hoi program, and of trying to get the NVA, North Vietnamese Army, and also the Viet Cong to surrender, to give up and not fight us. And there was another program that we had also been involved in called the Phoenix program, which has its own controversies, because we were, and I never saw anything like this, you know. But later on, there were controversies that this was an assassination program. I don't think so. I'm sure there's people out there going to disagree with that, you know. But it was, we had to deal with being this a psychological operations in an effort to try to win the population over. Okay, psychological operations was a big player in that whole effort, and we all heard about engagements involving villages, you know, where you engage a village and you end up hurting other people, civilians as well, and there were many civilians who were killed and many who were wounded and injured because of military operations. And so the idea was, and I forget the name of the fellow who came up with this approach, was that let's stop doing that. Let's start doing these large engagements, and we have enough intelligence to know who the bad guys are. Let's go after them, rather than attacking a village, you know, doing a whole-scale operation and upsetting a bunch of people and hurting people. Let's target the people that we know need to be taken care of.
Right.
And so part of the Chuhoy program was that, and of course there was also the Phoenix program. And the Chuhoy program was selecting people and say, come on over, surrender. Don't fight us, we'll treat you well. We'll treat you well. And you're going to be better off, okay? And it's not going to be bad for you, And we'll protect you, okay? We'll even protect you from other people who are upset, your own people who are upset with you because you're surrendering, you're Chuhoy. We'll protect you. Now, I wasn't involved in the protection part of it. We were just supporting this unit because it was involved in all of this effort. But I often wonder, where did these people go? Okay, where did these POWs and these people go? And the other day I found out there was a fellow at the Mayor Star of the Sea who told me he was in charge of a POW camp.
Oh.
I said, so that's where people went, because they went for re-education to be somehow transitioned back into the larger Vietnamese society.
Yeah.
And so we were not involved in that, and probably the most risky job I had was doing the resupply convoys, okay, which was going from down the Delta all the way out to Saigon, and sometimes we went to Bien Hoa to supply our people, okay. And I guess that's why they needed an infantry officer for this, because I was an infantry officer. This is what infantry officers do, And we learned, we did very well, We knew from my training about counter ambush operations, and so we were very good. And we also learned some things. I learned some things, that you don't apply some training, okay, because it doesn't make sense, okay. And one of them was, and not everybody was on board, but I learned that when you come, because there were a lot of bridges that were blown down in the Delta. There were a lot of bridges that were blown, and so we had to. There were a few bridges, and then we had to cross over on ferry boats. And in a lot of cases, well, where there were a few bridges, the training is that before you cross, you stop and you secure the bridge to make sure it's safe to cross.
Okay.
And then you cross. Okay. Well, I quickly learned that's not a very smart move. Okay, what do you have? All you people stop. This is a perfect time for an ambush.
Right.
Okay. So I learned. Okay, and one of the things we started doing was that we speed up.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, right to the bridge and you speed up. Scared a lot of people. Okay. But I remember we had a warrant officer one time with us, and we were in the lead jeep with him, and we came up to, I guess, the first bridge, and he said, "Aren't you going to stop to secure the bridge?" And we said, "No, warrant officer. Close your eyes, cover your ears, because we're going to speed up." And I remember him saying, "Oh Lord, I'm too sick to die." But we did cross, and nothing happened, So but those later on, I sometimes when you're in the middle of stuff, you really don't, and you're young, you really don't appreciate or think about how risky it is. Yeah. It was later on when I was reading that there were bombs that were buried in the road, that the engineers had to clear a lot of the road. Okay, that there were ambushes. That a convoy was dangerous.
Yeah.
But when you were involved in it, you were just doing your work, and continuing to do the convoys, as they were necessary.
Yeah. You mentioned the Jeep. What other kind of vehicles were you using for these convoys?
We had 2.5 ton trucks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those are the ones that we used.
So, Sal, what kinds of items were you resupplying? What items would you have in these 2.5 ton trucks that you were bringing?
Well, some of it had to do with vehicle equipment. Okay. We also made a lot of use of generators. Some of the large, we had something called the 35 kW, 35 kW generators, and because we as you know, when you're out there, you don't have electrical power, so you got to bring in generators to power your base and your buildings where you're at. And then so those required parts to be replaced. Also vehicles and also the equipment that our people were dealing with. They had printing presses, they had videography, they had stuff like that, supplies. So we those are the kinds of things that we had to go get supplies of.
Okay.
So
Good. Okay. And then could you talk a little bit about the food in your officers' quarters and
yeah, we had a building, okay, that I don't know the history behind it. We must have taken it, or we were renting from somebody. But we did take over a building, and that's where we had our actually sleeping quarters more so than anything. Because you were asking me the other day about food, and it occurred to me we didn't have a kitchen there. We didn't have a mess hall. It was just a building. And so we did gather food. Obviously, we always had the supply of sea rations, which nobody really liked, and so we went scrounging for food. And we were close enough to the headquarters of 4 Corps. It was called Ekin Compound. That a lot of us could go and have a hot meal there. It was, but obviously we weren't able to do that all the time, so we did it as often as we could, and we have to be careful too, because one of the things we needed to make sure is that we didn't have a set time when we went there. You're always guarding against ambushes, and attacks, so we all went at different times, okay, to make sure that nothing happened. It seemed pretty safe, okay, but there was still always the danger. You didn't want to set patterns. That was the thing. You didn't want to set patterns about when you go, So we went, sometimes I think we did set patterns, but we tried to not to have patterns. That this is for people to know that this is what they do every day. This is when they come out. So and then our own people pulled security for our building there, for our installation there.
Okay.
And so that's what we did. There were beds there, so we were to sleep on those, and we did have showers. The building did come with showers, so we had those. But as far as some of that stuff, we didn't have. We had some supplies there, not a whole lot, but we had some supplies, and we had a little area there where we maintained our vehicles. But one thing that an installation, no matter where it is, you will always have an enlisted men's, an EM club, and you'll always have an officers club. So we just a little room, that we picked out and said, oh well, we'll call this the officers club, and then the EMs, they also have a little room too, but not anything big, must have been probably half the size of the kitchen, but we call it an officers club, and the EMs too, they had their go to it. But to me it was funny that always, no matter, we may not have a kitchen, we may not have a living room, but we have an EM club, and we have an officers club.
Good. And how did you keep in touch with home and letters and things like that? How did that work?
Yeah, obviously at that time we didn't have the benefit of emails,
right.
So it was letters, and part of our as officers of our instructions were make sure that all of our people write home, okay, and sometimes we ourselves had to talk to ourselves that we need to write, set the example, and so we wrote, and we maintained contact, and we did encourage other enlisted men also, don't forget to write home, okay, to tell your family how you're doing, you're okay, and so we did do that, okay, and mail was, and it did take time, it did take time for letters to get across. We were also there when President Richard Nixon authorized us to cross over into Cambodia.
Oh,
Okay, and that was in '70, and there was a lot of people a lot of our people, including myself, who were upset about that, because we were working with Vietnamese. This was during the time they call it Vietnamization. It was to transfer all of our responsibilities over to the Vietnamese, the South Vietnamese. So and Richard Nixon was the president who came up with this Vietnamization. We're going to turn a lot of the responsibility over to the South Vietnamese. So we had even our psychological operations group was called Combined Psychological Operations Center. It was combined. It was Vietnamese and Americans as well, and we were training them to take on the load. So our impression we're going to leave here soon. We're transferring over. Well, when we got the word we're going to Cambodia, a lot of people were pretty upset. They said, "Wait a minute, this is supposed to be winding down, not expanding." Right. And even I wrote a letter to then my girlfriend, and it was right after we got the word. We got the word like in the evening, and we were supposed to help support this operation and load up trucks the next morning. And that night I wrote to my girlfriend, and I was expecting she's probably going to get this letter after it's in the news. Yeah. Okay, I mean this is mail. Okay, this is not email. So certainly email didn't even cross my mind back then. So, right. But by the time she gets this letter, she'll know. Okay, so we're not supposed to disclose this stuff, but I think a lot of us did. You know, we wrote home. I wrote to her, and I said, this is upsetting. You know, to me. And to a lot of guys here, you know, we thought that we were winding down, you know, we're Vietnamizing the war, and one of you asked me about things, you know, I did find that letter from her, which she responds, and she says, yeah, I don't understand it either. Now, thank goodness I don't know if she ever kept my letter, you know, but my letter should not have gone out, you know, because it was right after we got word, you know. But in the letter she responds about the letter that I sent her. Okay. And it was a letter that was upsetting, you know. And from others, I'm sure there were others who wrote, you know, said, you know, we're supposed to be winding down, you know, not expanding, you know. But thank goodness it did not last long, you know. It was a limited engagement, and we the troops all came back, you know, and but there were a lot of protests too in this country. Yeah. That's when Kent State happened. Mm-hmm. You know, Kent State, and even that to us, and we were hearing about this stuff, you know, that was upsetting to us. Kent State, you know, to me, you know, I can't speak for that, but I know among officers and others, you know, and we were all young officers, we talked about this, you know, and. My thought, you know, was, can't believe this, you know, our soldiers are killing American citizens. You know, this something is not right here. Over here, we're going after the enemy, okay, but over in our country, they're killing our citizens, our own people. You know, it's just that was hard. That was very hard to understand. You know, and I said this our country is. Something's wrong in our country, you know. Yeah. This is just bad stuff, you know. Yeah.
So. How was your mom and dad keeping in touch? What kinds were you getting letters from them as well?
I was getting letters from them, and I occasionally from my mother I would also get food, and also my girlfriend I would also get food from her as well. Oh, you know, food. So that kept us supplied with food. You know, my mother was very good about sending me tortillas, you know, and pinto beans. At that time, we had the small cans, and she would ship those over. So those were welcome. Yeah. And my girlfriend, she also sent pastries, cakes, and stuff like that. You know, so all the stuff was welcome. We made it last. We made all the stuff last. You know, when we got stuff like that, we didn't sit down and eat it all. You know, we apportioned out so that, you know, we're going to have some of it today. We're going to leave some for tomorrow.
Right.
And you know, when we ate the last day, it was kind of a sad time. You know, so we ran out. You know,
This is it.
we don't have this anymore. My last tortilla. You know. So, but we did do, you know, have fun with the food that we did get, you know, and I'm sure that was true for the other guys as well. You know. I'm sure that was true for them too.
Did you want to talk a little bit about your the stress and how it affected you physically?
Oh yeah, oh my goodness, you know, the thing about officers, you know, we're not supposed to show stress, you know. We're in command, okay. We do not show stress, you know, and then you sure as hell don't get into post-traumatic stress, you know, and so it was hard for officers to deal with that, okay. My first convoy, which supply convoy that we did, I was pretty stressed out, you know. I was concerned about, you know, running into an ambush. I was concerned about losing people, you know, getting back, you know, how do I get back, you know, this is the first time I take, you know, how do I, you know, I'm relying upon other people, you know, who know the road, okay. It was pretty stressful, you know, and it was stressful also for the people who are participating, because you don't know, are we going to get hit, and where's it going to come from, okay, when, okay. So people are during this whole time, you know, they're pretty alert, they're pretty awake about, you know, where this is. Stay awake, you know, and be ready, you know. So when I got back, I started feeling this sensation in my lower right side of my belly. It was fluttering, and I went and to one of the clinics we had there, and they said that's from stress. That's called colitis. Oh, I guess we don't show stress out like this, but it sure comes out inside. You know? Yeah. And I took the medication. I forget what it is that they gave me, you know. But it did help, you know. But that was the first time, and I had not heard about colitis, you know, until that day. They said this is colitis. You know, and this comes usually from stress.
Holding it inside.
Yeah. So.
Do you want to talk a little bit about, I know you're a man of faith, do you want to talk a little bit about how you were able to continue your practicing of religion while you were in wartime situations? How did that work?
It was challenging, okay? It was challenging. And even to this day, you know, there's a movie out there, a video that somebody did about stress and stress disorder, and they separate the spiritual stress from the post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, the emotional part. They say there's also a spiritual side, and these people, a couple of guys, walked from I think the East Coast all the way to San Francisco, trying to deal with that. Okay, the spiritual and I think there was a little bit of that in me, okay, because you end up doing things that surprise the hell out of you, you know, and they bother you. I think I mentioned when we talked earlier that I had an occasion when I was leading a convoy, okay, and we had gone, I forget what it is, I think it was Benoit, and we were fortunate to pick up some frozen steaks, and we're going to take steaks back to our guys, you know. This is gonna, our guys are really gonna love this, you know. So we're all happy, you know. But we have to rush too because we don't have refrigerated trucks.
Right.
There's a 2.5 ton truck, you know, laying out there. So we had to get it back before it spoils, you know. So we're rushing, you know, and we're going to get these extra guys. Well, as I said, you know, a lot of the bridges are blown. You have to cross over in ferry boats. Well, the civilians were also using the ferry boats to cross, and usually there was a line.
Okay.
And so we came out to one of the lines, and I decided to go around the line to go out to the front. And I started arguing with the Vietnamese military police, and they call them QCs over there.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know, we're on a mission. You know, we need to get across right away.
Right.
And he said, no. So you go back and wait in line like everybody else. I said, no. I said, we can't go back in line. We have to cross. We have to cross right now. And he said, next boat. I said, we got to cross. And so we started arguing back and forth. Now, mind you, he is an ally. He's not the enemy.
Right.
Okay. And but all sorts of thoughts started going through my mind. Certainly not spiritual. Okay. And one of the thoughts, or some of the thoughts, are that we're here in support of these people. And my God, you know, other troops are dying out there, you know, for this country, okay? Surely you can allow us to go forward, you know, out of courtesy, you know.
Right.
And but he won't relent. And so we started arguing back and forth. And then he does something that really upset me, and that was that there was another lady came over, Vietnamese lady came over to talk to him, and he turned his back on me and started talking to her, and I said, no. I said, no, we're not done yet. Don't you dare turn your back on me, okay? Mm-hmm. And he's trying to ignore me, so I went for my revolver, and I said, no, you will listen to me. Mm-hmm. And I thought, later on, why did I do that? Why did I do that? It was a matter of being angry and the fact that there was a gun there, you know. And he's not the enemy, mm-hmm. you know. Yeah. And to this day, that has always bothered me, you know, that and I studied to be a priest, mm-hmm. you know, and then in a moment of anger, this is how I reacted, mm-hmm. you know. I had a hard time dealing with that, you know. Mm-hmm. And I had guys who were watching this from the back of the truck. They're standing up there watching. You know, I said, "Sir, it's only steaks." Mm. You know, and that to me that was upsetting. Okay, mm-hmm. that I would do that. You know, why? Mm. Just because I was so angry. You know, and the fact that I had a gun. I believe now that there are people in this country who should not have guns. I'm one of them. Okay. I'm one of them. Okay, so it's those, you know, that's part of all the stress you experience, you know, and the spiritual side, you know, is that I really believe that despite that, okay, that my training and my faith did guide me, you know. I was very careful, and I did not, you know, one of the things you always worry about, you know, is putting other people in danger, you know. I don't think I ever did that. I was all looking for our guys, you know, mm-hmm. for our people. I tried to go to Mass as frequently as I could. Now, we did not have the opportunity or even the fortune of having a chaplain assigned to our unit. There was a priest who said Mass at the headquarters of 4 Corps. They had a little chapel there. They had a lot of things, but chapel was one of them they had, and so that he would say, so I would go there as often as I could. Obviously, I couldn't go there all the time, or you know, as I normally would have done over here. But I went as often as I could. But we did on my own. You know, I did pray a lot. You know, and I did have my rosary. Okay, and always I learned from my dad. Whenever you went on a trip, especially because. In Arizona, we would drive to Mexico, and when my dad would get on the road, he would say, "I commend myself, you know, to the Blessed Virgin Mary and to Christ," and I would do that over there. I make the sign of the cross, and I said, "I commend myself on this trip to you, Christ, and the Blessed Virgin Mary. Watch over us and guide us," you know, and So I always made sure that it just came maybe by instinct, but certainly it was necessary.
Yeah.
But my faith did help me a lot. I especially in my training. Okay, I think my training, despite that one incident, that's the only incident that I can say. Maybe others, I don't know, but that's the one that really stood out. That said, hey, this is not right. I shouldn't have done it. But to this day, that has bothered me. That no, that wasn't right. What made me do that? And today you look for people who might be of help. Okay, I came across a pastor, and I asked him. I said, how? I said, you're a pastor now, and you were also he was a Marine Corps enlisted man, also was in Vietnam. I said, you're a pastor. How do you deal with that? Things like that. And I characterized it. He just brushed me off. That he said, we were doing what we had to do. That's the easy answer, I guess.
Right.
But there's still an underlying question. There's got to be a little bit more to it. So I'm still looking for that. I'm looking for that peace. I guess in a way. Okay. That why do we do some things that we know we shouldn't have done? But it's true. There are people who say, you just got to live with it. Well, we certainly do.
Yeah,
It's
a struggle. Do you want to tell us a little bit about seeing the way the Vietnamese soldiers treated their dead comrades? You were a little
yes,
different than
yes. They
our culture.
Yeah, we came across a couple of Vietnamese who were. Maybe it was more, probably a handful of them, who had a couple of their guys who had been obviously shot, possibly wounded, okay, but they were dragging them along the road there on one of those convoys, and that they had been, they understand they were dead, okay, but they were making no effort whatsoever to give them any kind of treatment like CPR, nothing like that. They were just dragging them, they're dead. I'm thinking, maybe we ought to render some aid here, maybe try to, but the instructions were, no, you don't stop. They don't stop for anything like that. You let the Vietnamese deal with their own casualties. Later on I heard, it could have been an ambush where we stopped, so you never know, maybe it was a setup. So, but we didn't stop, we continued, and but I did learn later on that Vietnamese did deal pretty much that way with their casualties. They not much effort at trying to revive them or try to treat them. They looked at, they passed out, they're dead. They're treated as dead. And I've seen that not only there, but I think probably around the world in other parts. Like I've seen it in Mexico. Somebody is involved in a traffic accident and they get hurt and they pass out. They start making plans to bury them.
Different culture.
So, different way of dealing with people who are. I've learned, that somebody passed out doesn't mean that they're dead.
Right.
We CPR is part of, you shake them, can you respond? Can you hear me? Is there any breathing going on? And that was my training, my upbringing, but I didn't see that happening with the Vietnamese.
So how long were you in country?
I was there for a year.
A year, okay. So let's back up a little bit. Could you tell us a little bit more about the Chu Hoi program and the pamphlets that were distributed? How did they get out to the Viet Cong?
I was not directly involved in that. I was more in support. Okay, we did have another section called operations. Okay, they called it S3 as I recall. Okay, Uh, and there were a number of ways that they did that. Okay, certainly dropping leaflets was one way, using airplanes and helicopters. Okay, and the other was when there were actual engagements. Okay, they would personally try to distribute those on the ground. Okay, in villages, especially villages where they felt that there were VC there. Okay, uh, uh, more likely, when in villages that we had, there were VC. We had to deal with either the NVA, which is North Vietnamese Army. Okay, they were like us. They did regular engagements. Okay, and then we had the VC who were just buried into the population, and so they with the population with the VC, it was an effort of targeting villages where where intelligence showed that they were there. Okay, and so they would hand out these Chu Hoi passes in Vietnamese. Okay, and we would work with the Vietnamese. As I said, we had a combined psychological operation unit. We would work with the Vietnamese in translating those leaflets and brochures. We call them safe passes. Okay.
Okay.
I don't know what the Vietnamese call them in Vietnamese, but it was a piece of paper that they would wave. They said Chu Hoi. Okay,
Okay.
I'm surrendering. I'm giving up. Okay.
Okay.
And so that's what our operations people did. Okay.
Okay. And then before you left Vietnam, I know that you earned commendations. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that came about?
I think I did a really good job. Okay, everything that we did. I was surprised. But I wouldn't do it again. And the commendation I got as I was leaving was the Bronze Star, and as it says for military service in connection with ground operations against a hostile force, and that was given to us by our group commander, and as we were leaving. So I'm grateful for that. Okay, and that there was some recognition of the work that we all did. That it was difficult work under difficult circumstances. Trying to get supplies, to people, and the right stuff that they needed. This is not where you have a Home Depot or Lowe's. You have to get the right part to get your equipment, for you to be successful in your operations. So it was challenging, and then what you had to go through it wasn't like driving down the stairs, like going on a convoy, going all the way, I don't know how much, probably 100 miles, that we went to pick up parts and pick up supplies. It was pretty challenging, and to take people to do this. So you needed a combination of people who were skilled riflemen, and at the same time skilled supplies people who knew supplies, who knew parts, who knew what we were doing. It took a lot of knowledge. It wasn't just soldiers get up there and shoot a rifle. We had to have people who knew about car parts, truck parts, people who knew about printing press parts, people who knew about audio-visual equipment, about paper and supplies. We had some great people, and not only that, but also know the language. I didn't know the language. I did not know the language, but I had people who did know the language.
Oh, okay.
And that's where we had the compensation. Okay, that we had some. There was one sergeant there, wonderful guy who had been there on his third tour, and he knew the language quite well.
Wow.
He knew the language, and there were others also who knew the language, and they not many of us knew. Well, we knew bits and pieces,
Right.
of the language, but there were others, who in our unit, enlisted men who knew the language and had been there on their third tour. The rest of we were going to be there for a year, So it didn't make a whole lot of sense to go to a lot of training, to know the language, but really we should have known the language better than we did. Maybe we should have gone to language school before we got there, But I didn't have that fortune. But I mean, that doesn't mean that there weren't any officers. I'm sure there were plenty of officers out there who had gone to language school, who did know the language, and knew, how to interact well with the people. I think I interacted well with people there, but except for the fellow who wouldn't give me a ride on this ferry boat, But
so with the audio-visual equipment, were they, were they sending out messages to the Vietnamese people as part of the Chu Hoi program, or what was the audio-visual?
Well, it was printing passes, okay, and distributing, okay, and working with people who would distribute them, okay, and also working with intelligence, our S2 people, where these people likely to be, okay, where we need to target, the distribution of these leaflets. Where do they go? Where do we put them up? Do we just do a flyover and drop a bunch of them? If they were operations, probably, okay. That probably worked more with the North Vietnamese Army. But the North Vietnamese Army, they were pretty loyal. I don't think there were too many people there who were ready to Chu Hoi or to surrender.
Okay.
That's just my own thinking, because they were basically the professional army. The VC were another matter. Okay, they were part of the population. Yeah.
So you weren't sending out radio messages or things with audio visual.
And in retrospect, I think we could have, okay, because when I was at Fort Bragg, we did have a radio station there, okay, by PSYOPs, okay. It was called, initially it was called, WCSW. It stood for the Center for Special Warfare.
Oh, okay.
WCSW. Of course, that was too warlike, so later on they changed to WCMA, Center for Military Assistance.
Okay, military assistance. Okay.
But they did train people there on using the radio. Okay, and the PSYOPs people did have training. I'm sure today they're probably more into more audio-visual equipment. Probably the social media. Than we were back then.
Sure. So you earned the Bronze Star for your meritorious service, and then how did you get home?
We flew. There were about 3 of us, as I recall, that managed to come back together. We had gone over together.
Okay.
And we flew to Oakland. We flew to Oakland, and that's when I decided to. There was people had a sense that I was probably going to stay in. I never gave anybody the impression I was leaving. Okay, I was going to leave the Army. I think I pretty much decided at some point that this was not for me. Okay, I think it dawned on me that people can get hurt in this job. But I also did not want to let anybody know that I was going to be leaving, because you got different treatment if you were leaving than if you get the impression you were going to be staying.
Right.
Okay, especially among your commanders. Okay, and so when the impression was, and in fact I had orders to return back to Fort Bragg.
Okay.
To return back to Fort Bragg, but when I landed in Oakland, I resigned my commission.
Oh. Okay.
And I still had about a year to go. About a year ago, because my promotion was the next month. Okay. I think I resigned my commission like on January 30th, and then my promotion was like February the 14th.
Okay.
Okay. And so I resigned my commission and flew back to Phoenix.
Wow. Okay.
From there, and no one stopped me. But at that time, I think the Army and the armed forces started to wind down. So there wasn't anybody come up and say, you can't do that. Although I did have to do my reserve until 75.
Okay.
And that's one of the discharges I have there.
Okay.
So,
Oops. So. Did you turn it off? Okay.
okay.
So then, after Oakland, where did you? You're in California. What did you do then?
Well, I went back to Arizona.
Okay.
And yes, I think a lot of us had a difficult time transitioning back to civilian life. It did become a difficult time for me. When I got back to Phoenix, I immediately went to Arizona State University to look for my friends, and they were all gone. They had graduated and moved on. They were nowhere to be found. So the social support I was looking for wasn't there. Okay, and I went to the VA to ask them to help me get a job, and I did not get any help there. Their reaction to me was the fellow talking to me said, "You and thousands of other GIs looking for a job, you're gonna have to wait because the jobs are not easy to come by." So I was discouraged, and my family tells me that I did do some drinking. I did, and but my girlfriend, who had stayed with me during the time that I was in the service, she was very, very helpful. Forever regret. We did not get married. I don't know. We didn't have any argument, but we just went our separate ways, and our lives took a different path. But at that time, she was, and I told her that I'll forever be grateful to her because she helped me. She helped me. She one of the first things she did was she asked me out for a date.
Oh.
I didn't ask her; she asked me. Okay, and she said, "Come on, let's go dancing." And at the time, I didn't feel like dancing. I worried about our guys. That's the thoughts that going through your mind. I wonder how our guys are doing.
Right.
It didn't feel right to be dancing where you have people over there. Maybe they're going on convoys and they don't have the benefit of the experience we had. And so it was a difficult time, and eventually I did get a job on my own, and then a few months, maybe a few weeks after I got the job, I did get a letter from the VA telling me, "Welcome home, GI. We're here to help you."
Oh.
It fell on deaf ears, and I was not happy with the VA, and I went many years without much connection with the VA, and I quickly learned not to be talking about my service, okay, because I was getting bad reactions, from people about my service. Okay, they didn't know what I did, okay, but they seemed to have a bias about what I did and what we were all doing, the terrible things we all did. We all got lumped in, okay, and I figured, it's better just not to say anything. They don't even say you were a veteran, but when I got the job here in Oxnard, I did say I was a veteran, okay, and that's all people knew, that I was a veteran. That's all they knew, and then this is one part I do want to talk about because I feel strongly about it. I think we veterans, especially from the Vietnam War, got a bum rap, okay, that we're all lumped together, okay, and even to this day, there's still some biases out there and some terrible misunderstanding about what we did, okay, and bad treatment that we're still getting, okay. And my wife, my first wife passed away back in 2012, and I remarried, and she's been wonderful. She's the one that connected back to the VA, okay. And I did make a connection with the Veterans Administration, and but she's been with me, to a lot of events, and she has seen the reaction I got from people when they learn about what I did, and the fact that I was even an officer. Okay, most people think, you must have been drafted, you were probably an enlisted man, and then when they find out, you were an officer, I said, yes, I was an officer. You volunteered, yes, I volunteered, and then the concern goes up, and then infantry officer, the concern goes up even higher. Okay, and let me give you a couple of examples. Okay. I went to, my wife and we went to a meeting of the Kiwanis Club in Oxnard. I was asked to join them. And I went there, and we were sitting there for lunch, and I was introduced. And the first fellow who did the introduction talked about my having been in the service, that I was and then they asked what I did, and I said, well, I was an infantry officer, I was an officer. And then one of the guys sitting to my right says, oh, you were an officer, I was an enlisted man, we were not around to hang around with you guys. Okay, that's an interesting reaction. Okay, right. But there was a second reaction. Okay, when another fellow came in and said, oh, did you all meet Sal? And I said, yes. So did you all know he had started for the priesthood? And I said, no. And then so one lady on the other side of the table, and my wife was watching all this, the other lady says, well, how do you reconcile having studied for the priest and having been an infantry officer? Lady, I really don't have to answer that question for you, it's something I have to deal with.
Right.
Okay. And then the other day, my wife and I went to Lowe's, and DAV Disabled American Vets had a mobile unit there where they were taking claims, and there was a fellow sitting there waiting to submit his claim, and I went over to greet them. Okay, I knew the fellow who was putting it together. He's a member of our Lions Club, so I went over to greet them, and in talking about what we did. Of course, I said I was an officer, and he said he was an enlisted man, and he tells me I had no use for officers. They all put me in harm's way. They put us in harm's way.
Wow.
So this goes on even today.
Wow.
This goes on even today. Okay. So we have a lot of healing to do, and I hope and pray to God that we all work towards that healing, because it's not one way. It's all of us. It's all of us working together to realize, that we didn't all do terrible things, some of us, the Chuhoi program, was designed so that there wouldn't be any killing, let's have people, and our special force people were, especially our military, the John F. Kennedy Center for Special Warfare was very good about this, that the training was, we treat prisoners well. We treat prisoners well. We want them to surrender. So when I heard about the mistreatment of prisoners during the Iraqi war, that surprised the hell out of me. That surprised the hell out of me. That's not what I was trained. That's not what. I don't think that's the training that anybody would have gotten at the military assistance school in Fort Bragg.
Right.
We treat prisoners well. We want them to surrender. We want them to come to us. We want them to stop fighting. Right. And they're not going to stop fighting if they know that we're going to mistreat them, we're going to abuse them, and they'll fight to the death so that they're not taken prisoners. But so that surprised me. So I hope that we all learn, okay, that there's so much out there about soldiering, about having taken. About the war in Vietnam and what we all did, okay, and that we all have some healing to do. Yes, the soldiers have some healing to do, but it doesn't help when people in the public contribute to the torment and to the bad stuff that happened. Okay, right. We all need to work at it to welcome the soldiers back, and I love it when I see somebody says, "Welcome home," welcome home. Thank you for your service.
Right.
Okay. but not everybody says that. You know,
True.
I've had futures where, and those kinds of things stay with you.
Yeah.
They do stay with you. And so finally, uh, 3 years ago, I got to speak about all this. Okay, today is one of the days that I've spoken a lot about my service, because I wasn't doing that. And the first time I did it was about 3 years ago when I spoke to the Knights of Columbus.
Oh, okay.
They asked me to be the speaker.
Oh.
Okay. Actually, the first time they asked me to get a speaker, and I couldn't get a speaker, so the punishment was you get to speak then.
You had to do
Okay.
it.
You failed, so since you were in Vietnam, you be a speaker. You were a veteran. I said, okay. But it was at that time when all these things were happening about this lady who said, how do you reconcile having studied for the priesthood and having been an infantry officer? And others saying, you were in infantry, you know. So that day, that night, I decided I told him, I'm going to come clean today. Today I'm going to tell you, you know, more. You all know that, all you know is I was a veteran, and you all have this bias and this thinking or impression that I was probably drafted, like most of you here. I said, well, I wasn't. Okay, I actually volunteered, and I was an officer, and I was an infantry officer, and yes, I went to the seminary. Yes, I started to be a priest. Okay, so yes, all of the things are true. Okay, and this is what I did in the service, and there have been challenging times, and we all have to live with that. I have to live with it. Okay, but I am proud of my service. Okay, in Vietnam, I didn't do any harm to anyone except for the one instance when I did not carry through. Okay,
Right.
but it did challenge me. Okay, in my faith, and but we make the best of our experiences. Okay, we learn from them, and I know it's a cliche, just and we move on. Okay, but even with moving on, okay, we still need support. Okay, from the public. Okay, we cannot be brushing off soldiers as they did something terrible. They were bad. I've heard recently that there's even some landlords out there who will not lease to Vietnam veterans because there's something wrong with them. Okay, so we got to end that kind of thinking. We got to end the thinking that we're not welcome. Okay, we still, because those things stay with us. Yes, we hear a lot about somebody who says, you know, welcome home, thank you for your service, you know. But the ones that stay with you, the guy says, how do you reconcile? You know, having studied for the priesthood and having been an infantry officer.
Yeah.
Or you guys put us in harm's way. You officers, you know. So it's we still have a lot of healing to do, and I've done some healing. I came clean. Okay, I did finally admit, you know, what I had done, you know, and despite my trepidation, you know, but I still need to work with other veterans, you know, who are homeless, who are having all sorts of difficulties, and we need to be fair to them. You know, it's not right, you know, after everything that we all went through, for them to be out there in the cold, and without medical care. You know, and even there are even some veterans out there who are dying and they're not getting a military burial.
Right.
There was one day. A friend of mine died, and we couldn't get a DD-214 for him. We couldn't find one. Okay, and so I went to these guys. They're former military officers themselves, and they're part of a group that it's a memorial something unit. They put on taps. Okay, they said, well, we'll do it. We have enough information here that even though he doesn't have a DD-214, he deserves the honor of a military burial. So they went and did taps for him, presented the flag. Okay, and one of the neat things that the guy said was that we have so many veterans who are being buried without military service. Not today.
Good. Not
Not
today.
today.
Good. Well, that's wonderful. So you belong to the Military Officers Association of
Yes.
America. So, and that you're still very active in support of veterans. I think that's wonderful.
Yes.
It says a
Yes.
lot. That's actually how we met at a stand down in Ventura.
Yes.
What would be your takeaway from your time in the military then, if you had to kind of sum it all up and put it in a couple sentences? What would be your takeaway from your time in the military?
I guess it's two things. You know, I did learn a lot. Okay, but at the same time, we shouldn't have. I was like 22, you know,
Yeah.
and you look today at a 22-year-old, you know, they're young.
Right.
You know, they're pretty young. You know, we shouldn't have 22-year-olds. We shouldn't have our young seeing and experiencing terrible things like war. We really shouldn't. You know, we shouldn't have that. And to the extent that we can avoid it, you know, let's do everything we can so that our children and our young people. This is basically a part of our childhood that we lost. You know, that they experience things that most 22-year-olds in this country do not experience.
Right.
Okay, and that's fair. Absolutely, that's fair. You know, and so we had that part. But at the same time, you know, I also learned a lot about life. Okay, I learned about rules. Okay, there's some rules just don't make sense. Okay, and I learned that so much in my training. Okay, that I have applied in life. Okay, I'll pick a couple of instances. Okay, one was that there was one time when I was in a class, and I was helping with a class, and at Fort Bragg, and the major who was conducting the class asked me to go get some officers to come over and do something. Come over. They did. We had something for them that we got to do. So Lieutenant Gonsalez had them get a hold of them and bring them all in here. Well, I wasn't able to get all of them. Okay, there was a few who showed up, you know, but I didn't get all of them. Okay, and when we got back to the class, the major said, "Well, looks like only a few came," and I said, "Yeah, but I counted all of them." Then the major said something that has stayed with me all these years. He said, "Can some other officer go out and be more effective with those officers than Lieutenant Gonsalez?"
Ooh. Okay.
I learned that.
Mm.
I learned that. Can somebody of you other officers be more effective than Lieutenant Gonsalez in getting those officers in here?
Mm. Wow.
That's what effectiveness is. Get it done. Get it done. Okay. And the other one was something other than infantry school was, so now my learning there, my takeaway is that I got to be effective. Whatever it is I do, okay, what is effectiveness? Got to do it. Okay. And the other was in the infantry school we learned, what is the best defense against attack? Okay. And the answer was another tank.
Mm.
And then in civilian life, okay, when I was working for the city of Oxnard, what is the best defense against an attorney who is suing you? Another attorney.
Okay.
And so well, those things kind of stay with you, you know. And so many others out there, you know, that little bits and pieces, you know, that you pick up, you know, when you're 22 years old, you know, that kind of stay with you.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Is there anything else you want to add that we haven't covered that you didn't get to share?
Yeah, no, I can't think of anything else. We covered quite a bit.
We did.
But you know, usually, you know, the things to come back at you, you know, that you say, "Oh, I forgot that," you know. But you know, yeah, we can't live life that way, you know. About stuff we forgot, you know, beating yourself up because of something you failed to do, you know. But thank you for
Well,
giving
and we
me a
want to
chance.
thank you for your service, and we appreciate
Well, thank
that you're
you.
willing to share today
Okay.
with our group. Thank you.
Okay.
So I have one thing that always interests me that is similar to what Judy just asked you about your takeaway. But it's more, how did the service change you as a person?
Yeah.
How did it change you as a person?
Well, it did. Okay. It did. You know, because it made you more mature. It made you, and more so to be learning from that, okay? Because we did a lot of things that we have learned about, later on we read about, that we didn't know what's going on, the impact of what we were doing, okay? And so we learn to think. We learn to think, okay? There are consequences for what we do. My take is, there's not only is there an immediate consequence, there's also a long-term consequence. Okay, so and that changed me. Okay, because when you're young, you don't think about long-term consequences.
Mm-hmm.
You sure as hell don't. You know, and but then when you experience that your life could have been taken away or lost your life, you know, doing 2 years or 3 years or a year, okay, then you think about long-term consequences, okay. You think about what am I going to be doing, and the Army teaches you that, okay, that you know, sometimes you hear people talk, what are your grandchildren going to say about your service?
Mm.
So you think about long-term consequences, and you know that what you're doing today is going to have not only a consequence now, it's going to have long-term consequences too. So,
Sure.
yeah.
One other thing, were you exposed to Agent Orange during
Yes.
your
Yes.
service?
Yes.
Sorry, we forgot.
Yes.
Do you recall how that happened?
Well, all the time we didn't know, okay, and most of it didn't know, okay, at the time, and I didn't know much about it. I don't ever recall talking about Agent Orange when I was there, okay, and I years ago here in Oxnard I came across a fellow. His name was Bernard Dunham. He asked me when I had served and where I had served, and I told him. And he said, well, you had Agent Orange exposure. He had another term for it, that I was messed up. Okay, his own word for it. And I can prove it. And he brought over some maps, okay, of where Agent Orange had been sprayed,
Mm-hmm.
and Agent Orange had been sprayed in my area of operation during the time that I was there.
Yeah.
And later on, I had in my first marriage, we had twins that died at birth. There was a premature separation of the placenta.
Mm.
I've learned now that may have been a consequence of that. Okay, and now I'm having liver problems myself. Okay, and I'm being treated for that. Okay, and then I was also asked to tell my daughter, okay, that it could be passed on to her.
Oh gosh.
Okay,
Wow.
so there's immediate and long-term consequences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
So this was exposure to the Agent Orange that had been sprayed on the foliage, and it was just kind of residue there.
Yes.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and we came across areas where there were dead bushes and brushes,
Mm-hmm.
and we just figured they're dead.
Yeah.
But evidently they had been sprayed,
Yeah.
and that's why they were dead.
Yeah. Especially along the riverside, they didn't want the,
Yeah,
the ambushes. Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you so much
Mm.
for your
Thank
service.
you.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm
thank
so
Thank
you.
you for
grateful.
the time to share your story with us.
Yes, so
It's
grateful.
really a marvelous story.
It was a
Thank you
great
so much.
story.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for bearing with me.
Oh, heavens.
Our pleasure, our pleasure.
Yes, absolutely.